Greetings, everyone. My name is Emily Louie, and on behalf of Campbell and Company, I would like to welcome you to our first webinar in our Auditing Your Online Fundraising webinar series, which will be focusing on your website and donation page. Thanks so much for joining us today. Before we begin today's presentation, I'd like to quickly go through some logistics for those of you who may be new to our webinars. First, close any programs other than GoToWebinar that are running on your computer. We recommend calling in with a telephone instead of using your computer speakers. And if you experience any visual issues, please send a chat to Campbell and Company or contact GoToWebinar at the number on your screen. Today's webinar is being recorded and will last 30 minutes. Within the next 24 hours, you will receive an email from GoToWebinar that includes information on how to access the recording and download today's slides. Because this is a shorter webinar, we won't be taking live audience questions, but we do encourage you to email our presenters with any questions you have. We'll be sharing contact information before we conclude today. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our presenters today, Communications Associate Consultant Anthony Balas and Communications Associate Consultant Jade Graddy.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Emily. So again, my name is Anthony Balas, and I'm an Associate Consultant on Campbell and Company's communications team. So my job focuses on partnering with organizations of all kinds around the country to do things like brainstorm, refine, and articulate messages that are aimed at securing philanthropic support and driving missions forward. I think one of the unique aspects of our team is our expertise helping organizations develop and use what we call a case for support, which is separate from your standard suite of marketing messages, since it's specifically used to prepare donors to make a decision about making a gift. I'm also on our firm's online fundraising team, which allows me to take all that we learn when we help organizations develop their case and apply it to the broader and more dynamic world of raising money online.
Great, and I'm Jade Graddy. I'm also an associate consultant on the communications team at Campbell and Company. I am originally from Seattle, where we have an office, but I am based out of our Chicago office. And Anthony kind of gave you the lowdown of everything that we do. But I will also add that some of my work often includes doing some language assessment of clients' websites and just trying to think about how to maximize donation pages. So we're really excited to talk to you about this today.
Yeah, so just to give an overview of what to expect, over the next 30 minutes, we're going to get really specific and talk through effective donation pages. Now, Jade and I, as we said, are both on the communications team, and Jade has written for Campbell's blog on effective web copy. So our conversation today is really going to center around language, but we also want to be sure we're giving some best practices as well. So as far as the order goes, I'm going to run through some essential things to consider when crafting your page. Then we're going to talk through some language decisions, and we're going to end with a demonstration and some next steps. So all in all, this should be nice, short, and sweet. And we'll start off with just some general context. So to tee up this conversation, I think it's worth talking about why in the world taking 30 minutes out of your day and devoting this much mental energy to specific fundraising tools is a good idea. For starters, for me, it feels almost obvious to say that more and more people are integrating technology into every aspect of their lives. And for our sector, for the nonprofit sector, it means that as digital natives are maturing and older generations are adopting new technology, nonprofits, they have an incentive to prioritize a functional and efficient website that facilitates strong fundraising. But we're treading through a really strange territory right now of an ongoing pandemic, and with it, the importance of digital fundraising has taken on a new meaning. I recently came across data from the Next After Institute, which is a great resource, and you can see that it shows that ever since the pandemic took hold in the United States, the monthly average number of online gifts to organizations has actually been significantly higher than it was in 2019. You look, most notably, you can see that the average in April 2020 was up by a full 54.9% over April 2019. So I don't think most folks need the data to know that online fundraising tools are important. And we know that the investment in sophisticated tools has real financial barriers. So that's why with this general backdrop, our firm is trying to think through new ways that we can offer some of those light lift resources for nonprofits that might be going through challenging times, but still have that opportunity to adapt and make the most of their existing tools. So today we want to explore the, I think, generally acknowledged but largely underappreciated art of crafting an effective donation page, which is going to focus on web copy and then the overall user experience that moves donors to action. So, maybe you're tuning in because you oversee your organization's website, or maybe you're readily able to bug the person who does. Either way, you're motivated to make your donation page sharp, but you're not quite sure where to begin. So that's going to be our focus today, to hopefully give you some thoughts on how to elevate your online giving experience for your organization and make things easier for donors. So the items on the screen, at the top of the screen, are best practices that I think we would offer to just about any of our clients. So one of the bedrock principles that we're probably going to belabor a little bit today is to make things as easy as possible for users. So that means that the first and most simple best practice to include is a linked, easily visible donation button on every single page of your website. So this can also take the form of a sticky button in the navigation bar that shows up regardless of the page that you're on. So there are a lot of reasons that someone might go to your website in the first place, and a lot of reasons that they would donate once they do. I think building a button into the framework of your website, making sure that it shows up wherever people go, ensures that donating is seamless and never feels like a chore that donors have to search for. Some organizations are going to place their button all the way to the left if they want to make sure that it's the first thing people see, or all the way to the right to make sure that it doesn't get buried in that navigation bar, which, by the way, is typically something that we recommend only contain 4 to 6 items, just to keep things tight and simple. Again, the point is to make the button high on the page and then just easily visible. And in that vein, we find that organizations are successful when they make the button a different color so it's distinctive from the other options. The next focus area is the overall impact on the page itself. So this starts with making sure your page reflects your organization's brand. You want to make sure it has your colors, your fonts, and then possibly an active photo that's going to evoke the impact of your organization's work. It's really important for this to feel like your organization's page and that it feels familiar. So once you or your designer has made the right visual touches, you want to think about maximizing the general navigability of the page, which I want to emphasize is arguably the most important piece in all of this. So ideally, you want to choose a donation form in which all donation information can be entered on one single page. So the idea behind this is that making the donor click through page after page can introduce actually a strong disincentive to going through with the donation. So at the onset, you want to give donors the confidence that it's going to be a clean and really simple process. So this page should include ideally things like suggested and custom donation amounts, monthly giving options, and at least one non-credit card payment type, such as PayPal, just so that if someone has a preference or already has that information uploaded into an account, that donation is especially easy. So we know that different payment processors are going to have different constraints that accompany them. So it's good to work with the person who manages your website to find out how your payment processor can accommodate the simplest form possible. And also, it's always nice in a less prominent area of the page that you give a sort of give by phone or give by mail option with the corresponding contact information, just to be sure that you're reaching folks who might land on the page and then decide that they don't want to give online and want to give in a different way. So, you've gone through these steps and your page is sharp and the, supporter excitedly makes a donation. Are you done? Well, we strongly encourage putting thought into a good thank you landing page, as well as an automatic thank you email that both include links to social media pages and then reiterate the impact of giving, which we'll talk about here more in a second. At the end of the day, your donation page is an important part of stewardship. These are individuals who are in your donor pipeline. So the moment they make a donation, you have an opportunity for engagement and to really make them feel good about what they just did, and therefore to set them up for future giving. And of course, there are always ways that you can build on these best practices by taking into account what's going on at your organization. So, maybe there's a matching opportunity in place that can heighten the urgency to give right now at this very moment, or maybe new members can receive one of those branded tote bags. Like, everybody loves swag. So, as a general rule, you want to keep things simple, yes, but small additions like, matching opportunities or, opportunities to get, branded apparel or something like that. Those are things that can make donors feel excited, and they can really go a long way. So those are the bedrock principles that we see commonly practiced by an increasing set of organizations. But that doesn't mean that, grabbing the attention of potential online donors is easy. And it's why Jade and I wanted to sit on this question of, what makes for a good donation page for just a little bit longer. So Jade is an honest copywriting wizard and has a lot of ideas about what makes for effective copywriting on organizational web pages. So I wanted to pick her brain today on what fundraisers really should think about when making copy or user experience related decisions on their donation page. So, so far I feel like we've given a good checklist of concrete, like nice to haves or must haves, but I want to just acknowledge that there's that fuzzy territory of the language that's actually on the page. And in some cases, from a technology perspective, language might actually be the easiest thing that you can make changes around immediately. It's something that you can go in, make the copy edits and then move forward. So Jade, we're going to kick it over to you. When you're thinking about copy on a donation page, what are the top things that you consider?
Sure. Thanks, Anthony. So I think the number one thing for me, if there were a single golden rule of website copy, it would just be that less is more. People don't read digital screens in the same way that they read print materials. It's a different experience. And honestly, people tend to have a lower average tolerance for reading than we used to. We've been sort of conditioned to have certain expectations around the accessibility of information when it comes to websites and apps, where, important information is quickly identifiable and really skimmable. So sort of in this marketplace of attention, there's so many things competing for our focus. So you really need to make your point and make it fast. So keep your copy short and sweet. You want to create as few barriers as possible between your website user and whatever action it is that you want them to take or idea you want them to walk away with. And so because people tend to read less and have expectations of key information being immediately accessible on your website, it's key to avoid walls of text in your site's copy. This is especially important for your donation page because the action that you want them to take is giving dollars to support your organization's work. We all know our organizations need those dollars, so we really need to have the online donation experience be as painless as possible, to Anthony's point. The last thing we want to do is for people to be sort of tempted to abandon ship simply because they can't quickly get the information that they need to make an online donation. We want it to just really be quick and easy. So your website needs to be clear and usable as possible from the moment they're considering giving to, and they sort of curiously navigate to your donation page, to that moment after they've clicked the confirm button and submit their gift. So think of it really as a journey. If I'm a user on your site and I've had the idea that I want to make a gift, I should have, quick and easy visual and language indicators of how I can do that. And as Anthony mentioned previously, a big and bold sticky donate button is a really good way to do this. So once I get to that donate page, I also don't want to have to sift through piles of copy to A, figure out how to donate, and B, what my gift does for your organization. I want that to be clear immediately through concise language in the first 5 to 10 seconds I'm on your donation page.
Awesome. So, if I'm committed, to being simple and to the point and thinking through all of those things that are going to make that process easier, Jade, in your perspective, what are some of the aspects of the pages, like headers or et cetera, that you think I should focus on?
Yeah, so as we're thinking about your sort of web users journey on your website and our goals around what we'd like them to do, in this case, go to our donation page and donate. It might start with the very word that you use on the donate button itself. So there's this sort of burgeoning field in the user experience world called UX writing or user experience writing, and they have a lot of opinions on buttons and how to make them as clear and aligned with your goals as possible. So I actually saw an argument break out in a UX writing group recently that was fighting between the use of purchase versus buy on a retail site. And there were some good arguments on both sides. People got really passionate. Some people felt that because the brand of the retail site was sort of more upscale and formal, purchase felt aligned with that brand identity. Whereas other people were thinking about the accessibility of a more commonplace word like buy, especially if you have buyers who are maybe, speak English as a second language or something like this. So it was a really intense Facebook argument all over a little tiny button, but it does matter to a lot of people. So it's something to consider. So our donate button, what goes on it, the low sort of hanging fruit is built into that question. The verb donate is classic, it's common, and it has a very clear action embedded within it. But to some, maybe it feels a bit sterile or it has sort of an overly transactional connotation. Other people might prefer something like give. That might evoke a bit more warmth and connection, but giving can also be more general and kind of have less precision, if you will. Technically, people can give money, but they can also give their time. And at some organizations, they can give supplies or in-kind items. So it all really depends on the trade-off for you, if that warmth is worth that minor loss of precision or vice versa. And it might, depending on your brand and voice and your sort of goals. So there's similar considerations for something like support that's a little bit more broadly encompassing. There's a sense of camaraderie and community there, so people like to use support on their donate button. And maybe you're an advocacy organization, and when you hover over that support button, there's sort of tiered options of what your asks can look like. So one of those might be a monetary donation, but maybe we're asking people to support through volunteering, asking them to support by sharing an awareness campaign on social media or contacting a representative or something like this. This also kind of depends on how your site's structured and if these things are sort of living in the same place on your website too. So you've got your donation button sorted. What should the language on the page look like? And for me, when I get to a donation page, I love to see a message about my giving and or sort of the organization's mission or work right there up top. The reason that I'm giving is probably that I'm motivated by the impact the organization has on some issue or cause that I care about. So a message reinforcing that choice is always good. For those who are still undecided but considering giving, it can also help to tip the scales in your favor and be a motivating factor for them to give. So maybe that message is rooted in your mission with sort of an ask built in. So at the top, it says something like, we're fighting for healthcare access for everyone who needs it, but we need your help. Maybe you've seen more traffic because your missions tie to some current event. So perhaps that message changes to be rooted more in the urgency of a particular moment. So join us in making sure our families can access critical healthcare in COVID-19 and beyond, something like that. The next steps on how I give should also be clear. Maybe the form is built into the page right there. Maybe your online donations are processed through an external website that's more secure, and I have to follow a link to get there. Chances are you probably don't have much control over the actual infrastructure of your website because many of us just inherit the website that we manage and get, right? So the one thing that you likely have control over is your language, the messages and instructions you convey to people. If I have to go to an external page, how do I know that? Where am I liable to get lost? You really want to be kind of thinking about your user all along the way, from the moment that I make a decision to donate to the moment after I hit submit. So thinking about things like instructions and wayfinding copy that might be helpful for people to move through the process as well. Many donation pages also give options for online donors to direct their gift to a specific cause, program, or initiative. This can be a bit tricky, just in part because we would like to direct as many donations to general operating or greatest need most of the time from an operational standpoint. But there, maybe options are important to your donor audience and you'd like to include them, and that's okay. When you give those options, though, you do need to be strategic. And I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a donation page and there's a drop-down list of like 15 options to give. It's really difficult to navigate or wrap your head around. Some of those options are things like funds named after people without a ton of context, or really internal kind of facing language that's hard for me as sort of an outside user to quickly make sense of. So in our communications work at Campbell and Company, we help organizations write fundraising cases for support. And an exercise we often find ourselves doing is sort of bucketing funding opportunities into more simplified kind of higher level categories. So yes, maybe I do technically have 10 funding opportunities, initiatives, or programs that we need to get funded. But maybe 5 of those fall under education programs and 5 of those fall under advocacy work. So on my website, my giving options might look like give to educate the leaders of the future, or join the fight for education. I'm kind of riffing here. And maybe I'll throw in a third, give to where it's most needed, or give to the endowment, or something like that for the donors who are maybe a little bit more bought into the organization generally. But by establishing those higher level simplified categories, you go from this sort of overwhelming list of all the sort of, piecemeal things that you could fund to kind of more impact focused buckets that help the donor to quickly assess the type of impact they can make or they'd like to make. And, on the back end kind of gives you a little bit more flexibility so you're not tied up in all of these sort of restricted funds or restricted gifts in these really granular options.
Awesome. Jade, to one of your earlier points, I feel like of all of the, Facebook arguments that exist out there, arguing about verbs has probably got to be one of the best ones. So it actually kind of lightens my heart a little bit to hear you say that. These have been great. And I think, it's possible that someone, will make some or all of these changes and still have questions about is this effective? Is this working with my donors? So from your perspective, how do you feel like folks can test some of these assumptions that we're making here?
Sure. Yeah, I think the first thing that you can do is probably the easiest. You have the most control over this, but, start on the landing page and recreate the online donor journey yourself. You can kind of do the click through yourself and take sort of note of things of how many clicks does it take to get to the donation page, where are the places where I might get tripped up if I'm unfamiliar with the site, where are there opportunities to include more simple and straightforward sort of wayfinding language so people have the information they need to take the action I want them to take. But also, that being said, I think, we all kind of have that internal bias. We all are operating with usually more information than an outside user would have. So another great way to test how well your site and donation page is working is by doing some sort of informal usability test with someone who's just a bit more outside. So that might be a volunteer who's close to the organization, love to help out with small things like this. Maybe hop on the phone with someone like that and ask them to begin at the landing page and navigate through the online donation process. They can talk you through their clicks over the phone and kind of talk through verbally their observations, what could be confusing. And I just think that this type of data from an outside person can be really beneficial to enhancing the experience on your page. And it's also a quick and easy way just to touch base with volunteers or maybe donors who are close to your organization you have good rapport with. You're such a supporter of ours. We'd love to get your eyes on our website. Can you hop on the phone for 15 minutes and help us with take a look at this? The other thing is collaboration is key in all things, but especially for this. So maybe, marketing or communications is running the website, but development really owns that donor-facing language, or has that mastery over the giving opportunities. So those teams really need to be coming together to maximize the donation page and to really, make sure that it's speaking to your organization's fundraising goals. And then just sort of continuity. Don't just do this every 5 to 7 years when you do a website overhaul. You should continuously be asking yourself how you can make a more clear and user-friendly website through language and back-end website changes if you have that power. A lot of us do not. And this is not only from a functional standpoint, but just to make sure your donation page is continuously aligned with your organization's fundraising goals and sort of like current language that fundraisers are using.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that last comment about sort of the process of bringing in a donor and that being a good cultivation opportunity. I think that's something that's sort of foundational to Campbell and Company and testing different messages with donors. It's a great way to make folks feel a part of sort of what the organization is producing. So that's great. Well, it's so funny. We've had 25 minutes here, and I feel like these 30-minute webinars just kind of fly by. But we did save the last 5 minutes here for a demonstration, because we sort of felt like, these are great principles to talk about in principle, but like, what does it look like in practice? So I'm going to continue sharing my screen, but I'm going to bring up my Google page. So I think what we wanted to walk through, and I think Jade is going to be able to provide a little bit of color commentary as we go through this. We wanted to see, like, what does it look like? What does a strong donor online experience look like? So one of my personal clients is the Wilderness Society. They are an awesome organization that focuses on the protection of wildlands and bringing people together to protect them. So I wanted to pull up their donation page and just talk through it in the last now 4 minutes that we have. So I'm a TWS donor, and I'm really excited to get on their page and learn more about their website. So I Google them. I'm taken right to their website, and then immediately, even before I get to the main part of the website, it says that I can triple my impact. And so, I mean, it's giving me the option to donate right at the front of your experience on the website. And so you don't necessarily have to do something like this, but I think this is awesome. In any case, maybe Jade, actually, do you want to talk about sort of like how this page feels to you, sort of the simplicity of it and everything?
Sure. Well, I mean, for one, it's a beautiful page, very well designed site. And I agree. I think that pop-up page kind of speaks to the organization, or how well sort of giving and philanthropy is integrated into the organization. So let's toggle over the donate button, not click it yet. One thing I really like about them is that they sort of navigate you to different ways of giving. And we won't go through each of these right now, but I really encourage you to explore the way that their giving pages are broken out, because I think each page has a really nice sort of, messaging copy that is really motivational for giving, but it also gives you the proper amount of information without, again, being kind of like a wall of text. So definitely feel free to go click through those, but let's just click the donate button and see what it takes us to.
Is it showing up for you?
No, I think
slowly but surely.
Yeah, here we go. Now I can see it. Perfect. So that same sort of triple your impact message, I think that's really compelling to me, especially if I've just been meandering around the site and I'm kind of thinking about giving. I think the urgency behind triple your impact is great, because, if I do make a gift right now, then I can really maximize my donor dollars and sort of have a threefold impact than I already was going to. And then there's that sort of supporting message immediately under triple your impact that kind of speaks to the impact of giving. So, make a lasting impact to protect America's wilderness. That ties back to the mission that has motivated me to get to this point. So I think that's great. The donation form is built right into the webpage, which is awesome. And I know we don't all have control over this, but this is ideal. And I think the default being give monthly is smart, because we are trying to just nudge people toward that. And if, we can, tip the scales again, then getting them to give monthly is certainly great. There's a lot of, great giving options here. The emphasis on the fact that this gift will be matched over the next 3 months really motivates me. But if I do want to give once, it's easy to toggle to that give once page. And then there's kind of like a cheeky little nudge there again that you can give monthly, but not without being really pushy. If I want to give once, I still can. I can customize my gift, which is great. There's multiple ways to donate, so you can pay with your card or PayPal, to Anthony's earlier point of multiple giving options. So it's just overall just a great donation page and kind of a best in class example.
Yeah. Well, so Jade, I wish that we had more time to walk through all of that page, because it really is, sort of when you go through the process of making a donation, it feels seamless. But I want to recognize that we're at 1:30 here. Just give us a chance to wrap up. So in the slides that will go around to everybody, we've included a few just sort of resources that we hope you will consult if you're interested in thinking through more about sort of the copy that goes on your donation page. These are awesome resources, the last of which is really sort of Campbell and Company focused and is meant to help think through online fundraising generally and what you're doing that can be sort of most effective. So that's really all the time that we have for today. It feels like it's flown by. We know that there are likely lingering questions out there, but because we wanted to fit all of this content into 30 minutes, we want to encourage folks who have questions to send them directly to us. We're more than happy to keep talking through what's going on to take, your online fundraising efforts to that next level. So thank you so much for joining us. As Emily said at the top, today marks the beginning of an online fundraising focused webinar series. So we hope you tune in to what's coming, and we'll see you then. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.